Hi, my name's Rob Ryder speaking out of UKColumn. So this short video is about just experiences I've had recently with people who know me, how I think, and a lot of what I say is maybe a little bit beyond or too much, should we say, shining the light of truth a little bit too bright. And I've been told by people there needs to be a stepping stone into this. That's not my personality. I haven't got the time, the patience, the energy to be tactful and to nudge, should we say. It takes a lot of thinking and energy, and I've got enough going on in my own life to be doing that. And I don't like feel like I'm patronizing people, and it's not to say I've got the truth or anything like that, but I just say it as I see it, bluntly and as expanded as I can, but I try and explain it in simple words. But it's clear to me there are people are still that I've done a video quite a while back saying I don't see any evidence of a spiritual awakening, but since, should we say, the lockdown, there is, should we say, a political awakening, and as we know, that gets corralled to stop it going any further. So you've got GB News, Tommy Robinson, Russell Brand in the other spiritual realm, shall we say, who were there kind of to stop people going any further. That's my opinion. So we have what is called controlled opposition. Now, I don't call many people out for being controlled opposition unless they have an absolute bit of proof. So in the case of Russell Brand and Joe Rogan, they, should we say, a few years back misled people into what David Icke said when the lockdown happened. Now, I say misled because with their research team behind them, it's impossible, in my opinion, they would not have known the updated version of what David Icke said. So what initially David Icke said, they took that as the permanent truth. The second time David Icke, not long after the lockdown, he changed his mind as regards to virology, should we say, but they didn't update the truth. And that kind of put a bad taint on David Icke. And for me, Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, multimillionaires, they have serious research teams behind them. They would have known that. So for me, that is deliberate misleading. And there's other people like Tommy Robinson, who it should be clear by now, but not for everyone. And so we do have controlled opposition, gatekeepers, people who don't really know fully what they're talking about, who are putting themselves forward. And I don't know who is genuinely misleading. Some people just doesn't know the full picture. But you have to discern and look yourself. But there are people who are questioning now, but are still locked in political paradigms. There are spiritual people who are starting to look at the political world now, and they're getting misled spiritually. And there's lots of misleading, lots of controlled opposition, and you have to decide whose information shall I look at. Well, ultimately, should you be just looking at the information? Like I've said continually, I'm irrelevant. Who I am is irrelevant. Just listen to Mark Passio, people like him who constantly say, you may like Mark Passio, I like him. You may dislike him, it's irrelevant. Listen to the information. Some people might think I'm a bit of a smart ass know-it-all, but so what? That's your ego thinking, it's not mine. Yeah, we've all got an ego. Listen to what I'm saying. Doesn't matter if you like me or not, irrelevant. So these people who are getting corralled, and the idea of the political awakening is to keep you into this left-right divide, which we know about. And there are people getting driven left, people are getting driven right. The more, should we say, spiritual people are getting driven left. The more people with feet on the planet Earth, should we say, are getting driven to the right. And these are all being a corral. And I'm trying to say, if you go back to my video on the Matrix, And again, people have, I'm the only person I know of who actually defines what I mean by the matrix. There are other people say as though it's some kind of simulation on top of the real world. I don't believe any of that at all. For me, the matrix is simply the political map of the world versus the natural map of the world. The natural map of the world is where we live, objective reality with objective laws of nature. The political map is a perception field on top of the natural world where you have man-made laws, man-made ideas. That's the matrix that's controlling us. And most people are being locked into that. And that's where the political left and right divide takes place. But we live in the objective world of nature. But they're locking us into this political world. This is my opinion. This is my opinion. Matrix. It's not some, should we say, computer simulation that some of the beings have created to lock us in. I don't see any evidence for that at all. For me, the matrix is the political map of the world and our belief in it. And most people are locked into that. And even though for me that's unbelievably simple to understand, unfortunately, people are so locked in to this matrix. You do need people to do baby steps to get out of it. I'm not that person because I haven't got the patience to do that. But there are people out there. And so I know I've known the UKColumn since about 2010. So when I decided I was going to do something in 2009 about what was going on, when I'd figured out all the different connections, especially with the monetary system in the middle, your first thing is, right, I need to get information out. I'll maybe get a little newsletter going or something. You kind of feel like you're on your own. And then I come across some information on the internet regarding the UKColumn. I looked into them. I thought, well, that's interesting. They've already got not just a newsletter, but a newspaper. If you look at the Light now, the original UKColumn was a newspaper like that. After it, they started out as a newsletter, but then they developed into a newspaper. So I looked, I thought, okay, these people are already doing where I want to progress to. I've got no experience in that. If these people are for real, why don't I just distribute their newspaper? So I arranged a meeting in Plymouth, went up there, was met by Kate and Carol, who worked behind the scenes. Carol sadly passed away a few years back. And Carol came my connection to the UKColumn, as it were. But the only thing I was interested in when I had a chat with Brian at the time, many years ago, was, is he exposing monetary fraud and the child abuse that goes along with it? And that has been their, to be fair, their main focal point. They've gone off a little bit on, really, I would say, the monetary issue for quite a few years now, but that was their main focal point back then. So I thought, all right, they're for real, if that's what their main focal point is. So I thought, all right, that's interesting. It makes a lot more sense for me to distribute their news if I feel it's good news, rather than me not having a clue what he's doing, trying to create something that they've already created. I may as well support them. So I went a few weeks later back to a little meeting they had, kind of an editors meeting where people could go. There was about 40 people there. Brian and Mike couldn't attend that one, and Carol was there. And I'm listening to people trying to take things in. I'm thinking, yeah, these people are the real deal, but I just want to, before I commit, I want to check out a little bit more. And I'm talking to interesting people there in the crowd. And there was this group of about 4 men, shirt and tie, which, you know, it was a casual meeting, so that was interesting. And they wanted to have their say, and Carol was kind of like organizing the meeting. And they had their say, and it turned out they were kind of a far right organization. They would have contacts in Europe, and they were trying to stimulate some kind of far right movement in this country. And they'd seen that the UKColumn were promoting the British Constitutional Group, and just the name and the flag of Britain now promotes a far right thought, which is ridiculous, but that's what it did in them. And yet, if you'd actually read the constitution of, or the understanding, should we say, of the British Constitutional Group, it was based on common law. Not far right at all. There's no racist language in it, none at all. But the confusion sets in. Yeah, it's like just putting the British flag up in the World Cup. Oh, you're a racist. No. Anyway, these people wanted to have their little say. Carol gave them their little moment that they wanted to unite with the UKColumn. So the UKColumn would be the kind of the press of this far right movement. And Carol stood up and said, listen, you've had your say. This is not what we're about. And if you want to know the truth, we're not even about politics. This is a spiritual fight we're involved in. Before Carol stood up, I started doubting. I thought, hang on a minute here. Have I been deceived into something that I didn't know? Because I started having doubts when these far right people were talking. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then Carol stood up and said, you've had your say, but we're not interested. Thank you very much. And they started, having a few words. And she was quite a strong woman. Said, listen, you've had your say. It's not for us. This is not political. It's beyond politics. And it was her little, I wouldn't say speech, but I would say her putting it straight to these people, for far right, she was definitely far right because they were open about it, men dressed in shirts and ties, and she just put them straight. And I thought, yeah, this is for me. So I ended up distributing the newspaper, thousands of them. Carol's kind of like my contact. But something Brian said from very, very early on was it was decided behind the scenes with the UKColumn that they're there to not shine the light of truth too bright, because it does play. And I've had experience with how I speak to some people. You can shine the light of truth through bright because people are locked in the political paradigm or some kind of religious, dogmatic, spiritual paradigm, and you can't just do what I do and just blurt out what you feel is the truth. And that's just my thoughts. So there is a need to nudge people. So the UKColumn are very aware, in fact, the leaders, and showing how we've been nudged by government negatively. And if you've ever watched their work for years and years and years, and I've worked with them, I've done seminars with them, etc., there's a nudge always, so that this is what we know about the banking system, social system, whatever, but there'll be a nudge at the end to say, there's more to it. So that's what the UKColumn have always tried to do. And a lot of people might perceive that as controlled opposition, gatekeepers, etc. All I can say from personal experience is you can shine the light of truth too bright, and it just creates a shutdown. I'm not great for nudging, so I just say it as it is. But there has to be someone to nudge to get people into the game, as it were. But you have to nudge that there is more. And I think they do that quite well. GB News has seen that after the lockdown, so they were pushed into the highlight, but as definite gatekeepers. Just look at the funding. This is a huge organization, and it's keeping people in the left-right political paradigm, which is an illusion to divide people. Same as religion, whatever, same as lots of opinions. So do I believe the UKColumn are gatekeepers? My own personal opinion is no. Do I agree with their take on everything? No. I have my own strong beliefs on certain things, should we say. We don't have to go into them. But then again, we're not all robots, so we're not all going to agree. Do I agree on their tactics? Yes. I think it's needed. Some people don't. I think it's needed. Like I say, we don't have to agree on all the details. There's some things that, oh yeah, you could do this slightly different, but you're going to do it your own way. There's some things I think, well, they should say this, or they shouldn't say that, or they should make a decision on that. This is just me, how I would do it. They're doing it their way. They've had success. So it doesn't matter. If we all agreed, we wouldn't really be human. And there's always going to be conflict, should we say, friction in the so-called freedom or truth movement, or whatever you want to call it, because it's impossible that we can all think alike. The most important thing is your motives. I believe their motives are to get people into the game and then nudge them a bit further. Something Brian said to me many years, if you're awake, you don't need to watch UKColumn news. And that's true. But there are people who I know who are struggling with what I say, who need that step into the system. And the GB News, although it can be a step into the game a little bit, is very, very limited because they're not going to nudge you onto anything further. So that's my opinion. If you've got friends who are, what you're saying is a bit too much for them, and they're watching GB News, say, listen, okay, yeah, try and explain them a little bit that this is a huge organization that's keeping people in the left-right political paradigm. Give them a go at UKColumn News. You know, who knows, I might be wrong. In Orwell's 1984, you know, he was deceived by the person he trusted most. You never know. Ultimately, you should be trusting yourself anyway. You shouldn't be listening to people. It's the information you should listen, and you don't have to agree with all of it. But I only call people out as control their position when I've got a definite reason to do so. Otherwise, they say, listen, I don't agree, or I think your thinking's a little bit limited. So I'm very careful to call people out. But in the case of UKColumn, they're deliberately limited to get people into the game. But they are hitting far, far more than GB News would ever touch. And the most important thing is they've gone out of the left-right political divide. And in fact, they've actually shown structurally how the left-right political divide is controlled by the same people. And they don't promote a political party or solution. You could say local political activism, but not backed by a party thought. It's you getting involved in your local community and looking what's going on, because that's where our power lies. Can't challenge the top pyramid, we can't climb up there. But local people in condensed groups who understand what's going on challenge the system locally, where the people pushing the agenda have no idea they're pushing an agenda. That's the Achilles heel of this, I call it communism by stealth, localism, is being promoted as localism, local power, when it's the complete opposite. Devolution is complete opposite. It's more centralization of power. It's them saying to us, you can do it your own way, but under this framework. Yeah. So you locally, you can deal with the environmental disaster we're facing, climate change, man-made. You can deal with that your way. But there's no question of, oh, but is there a climate disaster? Is there man-made climate change? You're not allowed to question that. You're just allowed to know how you. It's very clever. That's why I call it communism by stealth, or centralization by stealth, sold as devolution. So this is just a quick video to support the UKColumn. Like I say, I don't have to be in agreement with all their principles, but I do know the tactics that are being used. I think they're very needed. And I think if you've got friends who are on GB News, you need to get them out of that and out of this political paradigm to widen their scope a bit, and then to be nudged a little bit further to where you are. Because if you're like me, it's very difficult to be tactful. So that's my little take on getting people out of the political paradigm and maybe nudging them further via something like UKColumn News to just expand their knowledge a little bit more.